The Explainer. Today, we are diving into what might just be the most statistically tracked, most obsessively documented amateur sports league on the entire planet. And no, I'm not talking about the NFL. This is something way more personal. Just imagine for a second. What if every single pass, every touchdown, every single point from your casual weekend game was tracked and analyzed? What if every player's performance was logged season after season in a gigantic spreadsheet? Well, for one group of friends, that's not a what if. That is their reality. And that leads us to our first real mystery. And it's one that's baked right into the name of the league itself: the Tyler Games. Okay, so this is where things get a little weird. The league is named for a guy named Tyler Combs. But when you look at the actual data, you see this huge disconnect. Get this. Tyler scored 0, that's 0, points in 7 of the 10 games he played. That's 70% of the time. Statistically, he's one of the least productive players they've ever had, which, of course, leads to the big question. This paradox, right? This clash between the name and the numbers. It's the perfect way for us to get into the weeds of this surprisingly complex world. It's our first clue that this whole thing is about way more than just the stats. But let's start with those stats, because at the very heart of all this data is an absolutely epic rivalry. It's a battle for statistical supremacy between the league's two titans, Juna Maxwell and Lyle Carpenter. So if you look at the all-time leaderboard for total points, you see Juna Maxwell sitting at the top with 457. His rival, Lyle Carpenter, is breathing down his neck at 424. And then there's a pretty big drop-off to Alex Probsfeld in third. So on the surface, you'd think, okay, Juna has a narrow but clear edge. But hold on, because this is where the story gets really fascinating. If we look at what you could argue as the most important stat, touchdowns, the rivalry is perfectly, statistically tied. Both Juna and Lyle have scored exactly 53. A dead heat. So how is that possible? How can they be so different in total points, but identical here? Well, the answer is all about how they score. The data shows Juna is the league's classic field general, the ultimate quarterback. I mean, look at that. A massive chunk of his points comes from passing, and he tacks on almost 100 more from kicking. He is the guy who controls the game from behind the line of scrimmage. Lyle, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He is a physical, athletic force who just dominates in the open field. His points come from catching the ball and from these explosive kick returns that he's the best at in the entire league. He's the playmaker you have to worry about on every single down. But the Tyler Games are about so much more than just this one central rivalry. When you dig into the data, you find this whole roster of specialists and, cult heroes, each with their own unique claim to fame. You've got guys like Henry Young. He's only played in 4 games, but he has never lost. A perfect 4-0 record. They call him Mr. Perfect. And, you can see why. When this guy shows up, his team wins. It's that simple. And then you have Alex Probsfeld. He is the undisputed king of the ground game. His 92 rushing points aren't just the most in the league. They're more than the next 2 players combined. He is the definition of a workhorse. So what you start to see is that these very distinct roles, these player archetypes, emerge from the data. You've got your undefeated winner, the ground and pound rusher, the explosive return guy, the defensive lockdown artist, and the strategic kicker. In this league, there are a whole lot of different ways to become a legend. Now, when you have so many dominant, specialized players, the game itself has to change. It has to adapt. And this has led to this fascinating, one-of-a-kind rulebook that's constantly evolving. It's almost like a living thing. And you can see that evolution so clearly on this timeline. After just the second game, boom, 2 new rules get introduced to counter specific players. Then after game 8, the kickoff rules get a total overhaul. In this league, what you do on the field can have permanent consequences for how the game is played forever. And the most famous example of this is the Lyle rule. Basically, you can't sack the quarterback, and the person who snaps the ball isn't allowed to run with it. Now, this wasn't some rule they had from the start. No, it was created specifically to nerf a player who was just too good. Think about that. That's an incredible badge of honor. You're so dominant, the league has to literally rewrite the rules of football just to try and contain you. So after all of this, the rivalries, the legends, the crazy custom rules, it all builds to one ultimate question, right? With all this data, can we actually, definitively, crown a GOAT, the greatest of all time in the Tyler games? Well, it really depends on what you value most. If your argument is all about pure volume, just the sheer number of points somebody puts on the board, then yeah, Juno Maxwell with his league-leading 457 points, he's your guy. Case closed. But maybe you think points are just noise. Maybe the only thing that really matters is winning games. Well, if that's your metric, a completely different group of players comes to the front. You've got the undefeated guys, Henry, Dominic, and Sean. And then there's Marcus Neiswanger, who has an incredible 83% win rate over 6 games. And then there's the argument for pure efficiency. Who was the most dominant every single time they stepped on the field? And the answer here is kind of wild. It's a one-game wonder named Sean King. In his one and only appearance, he scored an unbelievable 51 points. His points per game average just blows everyone else out of the water. This constant debate is really what makes this whole thing so special. It's this amazing system where stats and strategy and friendship and just ruthless competition all collide. And nothing, I mean nothing, captures that chaotic spirit better than this one single line from the official rulebook. The ability to trade a player for literally nothing in return. That says it all. So what really defines greatness? Is it longevity, like Juna? Is it that single game, lightning in a bottle efficiency like Sean? Or is it just about winning, plain and simple, like Henry? In the end, just like with any great sport, the data doesn't give us one easy answer. What it gives us is a fantastic, endless debate. And maybe that's the whole point.
Tyler!